to fight on the landing ground.
Thank you for joining us. You are listening to A Radio, and this is The Morning Moment. Please click on the follow button on Spreaker.com. I want to do this piece because it carries on with the other two pieces I've just recently done. It's very, very long, but it's very, very important. This piece is basically to show how some people have reacted to the unjust arrest of Tommy Robinson. I do believe that the British government and the establishment have pushed their ideology just one step too far beyond the acceptable. And to reference a previous podcast, The Overton Window. And that podcast is The Overton Window, Fact or Fiction, January 29, 2018. And the links to all these links will be on my website. I have taken 2 UK political characters and 1 former UK police officer. These are the clips of what they are saying, edited for time. The first will be Anne-Marie Waters. The second will be Peter Weston. Both of those are part of the For Britain party. The final clip is from a former UK police officer. See if you think, like me, that, to use a phrase not heard much today, something's rotten in Denmark. Is it already too late for the UK to come back from the brink? Or are they, as I fear, heading towards a 2018 version of the poll tax riots that happened in the 1990s? This time, freedom and free speech is at stake, and I think this time it could be, and I emphasise could be, far worse if the British government don't back down. Here are the clips. And remember, this is a very long podcast, but it's well worth listening to.
And thank you to everyone who turned up to Speaker's Corner yesterday. Really good turnout. I went there yesterday. I was going to go there anyway, just to say a few words about the about freedom of speech in this country. After what happened with Tommy Robinson, I decided to speak about that instead. Just to say a few words about Tommy Robinson, there's a very big issue going on here. Now, I don't know the particulars of the current case that Tommy is facing, so it would be wrong and irresponsible to comment on the legal side of this case. But as I said at Speaker's Corner yesterday, there's something much bigger going on here, and it's demonstrated in what has been a persecution of Tommy Robinson. For years, the man has been persecuted. There's no doubt about it. The wider picture in all of this, and this is where we need a political response. And as I said at Speaker's Corner yesterday, everyone involved in this has to do something different. We have to attack the threats to our freedom of speech, to equal rights for all people before the law, from various different places. And one of them has to be politically. We need a political response to this. And the political response involves a bigger picture, which is an institutional bias. There is a widespread institutional bias in favor of Islam in this country, and which will persecute those who speak ill of Islam. And of course, Tommy Robinson is the most high profile, and he's been doing it for a long, long time, criticizing Islam. And this is why he is subject to persecution. Another point is, of course, about the selective enforcement of the law. You will find that the law is very robust, and the police enforce it very robustly, depending on who you are. And they will turn a blind eye depending on who you are. And the triggers are essentially if you are a pro-multicultural, pro-open border, if you happen to be an illegal immigrant, if you happen to be Muslim, then the police will go very easy on you. They'll go very easy on you. If you happen to be a defender of Britain, an outspoken Democrat, an outspoken nationalist, or if you happen to be critical of Islam, then you will find the full force of the law is thrown at you at every opportunity. This is the problem. This is where people get angry. They know. I wonder sometimes, does the state think we can't see this? That we're all completely oblivious to the widespread and really rather sickening bias in this country and beyond in favour of Islam. They must think we can't see it, but we can. And this is a ticking time bomb here. There's a ticking time bomb here. People are becoming angry because the obvious injustice that we are experiencing with regards law enforcement here. Geert Wilders stood in the Dutch Parliament and asked questions about what is an obvious, regardless of this case, what is an obvious state persecution of Tommy Robinson. But yet, who in our Parliament is going to do it? Who do you think? In the House of Commons, and I'm sorry, again, as I said yesterday, the House of Lords isn't good enough. We need something in the Commons. We need someone in the Commons to go in and place a question before Parliament, preferably even at Prime Minister's questions, and ask that Parliament in no uncertain terms, is Tommy Robinson being persecuted by the British state, yes or no? If he is, why, and what are we going to do about it? This Tommy issue has shown us that we need political support. I support everyone there, the bravest people in the country who go out and who protest, and we must do it, and we must do it in bigger and bigger numbers. But we must have some change at the top. We must have something to get injected in there and to make them all just feel that, just make them all feel uncomfortable, show them up to the country for what they are, hypocrites and largely anti-democratic and anti-British, frankly.
Tommy Robinson was arrested last Friday, and this comes just days after Muslim Sajid Javid became Britain's new Home Secretary, which is more than a little coincidental, one has to assume. Tommy was accused of breaching the peace, which is a lie, and immediately surrounded by 7 members of Britain's heavily politicised paramilitary police force, bundled into the back of a van, taken straight to court, and then sent straight to prison. Several news outlets covered the arrests, but a la Orwell's 1984, they have already been consigned to the memory hole, which basically means the British government has issued what is called a D-notice, or a reporting restriction on the British press. And such an unprecedented judicial decision is usually associated with issues of national security, and not, to the best of my knowledge, has ever been used before to silence a journalist in Britain and to then silence the silencing of a journalist, which, my little left-wing half-witted friends, is exactly what Tommy is. He's a journalist, and a far better journalist than most of the beta males and epsilon semi-moron females working in Britain's Marxist media can ever hope to be. The details surrounding Tommy's jailing are not completely clear. We know he was serving a suspended sentence for contempt of court, which was issued because he had previously covered a criminal trial consisting of the usual suspects in the world of culturally inspired rape and torture, which our ruling elites would rather we did not know about. Reporting restrictions on criminal trials are usually issued because the judiciary don't want to lose a prosecution via interference with a jury. But the reporting restrictions on the hundreds of gang rape trials are not issued for this perfectly valid reason. They exist only in order that the general public remain completely in the dark as to the extent of the gang rapes and, more importantly, the extent to which the government, police, social workers and journalists are absolutely complicit in the gang rape themselves. So when Tommy draws attention to this grotesque failure of every single arm of the state, whose job it is to protect innocent, vulnerable English girls from the deprivations of imported gang rapists, the state suffers acute embarrassment, and rather than confronting the core problem of the cultural ideology behind the rape of infidel girls, it chooses instead to silence those who embarrass them. The police arrested Tommy on a pretext. He wasn't breaching the peace at all. This was a lie, and a lie of such importance it couldn't possibly have come from rank-and-file coppers or even chief constables with degrees in transformational social justice and common purpose. This lie came directly from Theresa May's government. This lie came from the very top down, and it was planned to the last detail. A courtroom and a judge were waiting to immediately sentence him. A prison cell was booked in his name. The D-notice had already been activated. This combined is the action of a totalitarian state.
I am an ex-police officer, Leicestershire Constabulary. I have just seen a video on Twitter that shows Tommy Robinson being arrested in Leeds on suspicion of causing a breach of the peace. I don't normally do videos like this. I am absolutely disgusted. I am furious, and I just feel like I had to say something. Tommy Robinson was standing in a public place outside a courtroom in Leeds. He was filming a live stream regarding the court case of some grooming gangs, or a grooming gang that was going on in that courtroom today. He wasn't shouting, he wasn't making any sort of fuss, any trouble, but the police arrested him. He wasn't inciting anybody to do anything. I used to think that I missed being a police officer, but I'm absolutely over the moon that I am not in the UK anymore, and I'm not a police officer there, because I think it's shameful. Shameful. I have made a formal complaint to the West Yorkshire Police. That's all I have to say. I really don't have any more words. I'm actually quite upset.
You can find more at aradio.wordpress.com, where you can find links to us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Gab and email. We are continuing to reach out to you, so please pass on the links. Please click on the follow button on Spreaker.com. You can listen to all my morning moments at Spreaker.com under A Radio, that's EHRADIO, A Radio, and please click on the like button. And you can find all my podcasts and morning moments at aradio.wordpress.com and click on the Morning Moments tab.